Well. Welcome, everyone, to the post-race stream of the 2022 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. My name is Tommo. Hello. I am still in the dining room. There is still no desk. Very upset with FedEx. But we move. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Hello, Wessel, Karina, Gert, Mar, Nalik, Tim, Ronald, Brendan, Yabdi, Wingcap, James, Prime, Sam, B-Span, Larts. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to everyone who's watching live and everyone who's listening and watching after the fact as well, whether this is on YouTube, Spotify, not on Apple Podcasts still yet. Can't work out how to do it for some reason, whatever. And thank you all for coming. We're going to talk all about the race. I look tired. I do actually look a bit tired, don't I? I feel all right. I'm a little bit tired. But I do look a bit tired. But if you're just audio only, then you don't know that. So, there you go. Welcome, everyone. Let's talk about it, shall we? The race finished. I usually do these on the Monday, but I'm out all day tomorrow. So, I wouldn't have got an opportunity to do it. So, I thought, well, the race started quite early today, UK time. So, we'll talk about it now. We'll talk about it now. Let's jump into it, shall we? The classic YouTuber line. Let's jump into it, guys. Let's jump into it. Now, thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it. Imola, sprint weekend. Lot to talk about. But we'll start, as we always do, with the race rating. So, not including yesterday, not including qualifying, just the race today. What are we giving out of 10? Live chat. Talk to me. What do you think? Obviously, we saw the race start in kind of intermediate conditions. No DRS for half the race. And then we had DRS for the second half of the race. And also bear in mind, again, like 5 is like a bang average race. It's not a good race. It's not a bad race. It's an okay race. So feel free, if you didn't like it, give a 2. If you did like it, 10 has to be one of the greatest races of this generation. Okay, just trying to get, because usually people say, well, I've seen a lot of 7s. 7 kind of has become somehow, hasn't it? When you ask someone, like, if they think something's all right, they just think it's okay, they'll give it a 7. It's like, no, you give it a 5, because that's in the middle. But there you go. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of 7s, 6s. There was a lot of complaining on social media. There was a lot of complaining on the comms about the DRS not coming out. But this was kind of an interesting case study. And we'll talk a bit more about this as well. Maybe why the DRS didn't come out as early as maybe it should have, or maybe it shouldn't have. I'm sure there was. I don't know if there's been an official word from the race direction. We'll talk about that later. They were going on about it a lot. But for me, my rating out of 10, and again, look, I think for me, bang average is a 5, not a 7. So I've given it a 5. I've given it a 5 out of 10. It had a bit of drama at the start. It was very stale throughout periods, but it had its moments. It's not a worldie of a race that we'll look back on. There were a few kind of driving mistakes as well that crept in. But I think 5 is fair. Because it was an okay race. Okay, 5's not a bad rating. It's not a good rating either. Plumb in the middle. Yeah, I mean, look, Imola is one of those tracks that there's a lot of history, there's a lot of nostalgia around it. But is it the best track for racing? No. These cars are huge, and with the dirty air, you look at the cars back in the 90s, kind of early 90s cars, and they were massive as well. If you haven't seen them in person, you compare like an early 90s McLaren to a mid 2000s Ferrari. The early 90s car is significantly bigger. They are huge. But the thing is, back in the day, you didn't have all this complex aero. And we still have dirty air. Just because there's less dirty air now doesn't mean it's not a problem. So we did say, although it was quite funny that it's a DRS train is called a DRS train, even though there was no DRS, which I found quite funny. Can't call it a DRS train if there's no DRS. So we didn't have it for the first half of the race. which again goes to further explain that there's a bit more nuance. I think DRS trains became more common after DRS, so they've been called DRS trains. But actually, not every, drivers not being able to get past and getting stuck in dirty air doesn't mean it's a DRS train. Just saying. But yeah, I like Imola. I mean, I don't have personally a huge amount of nostalgia for it myself, because my earliest years watching F1 were in the 99 to 2000 kind of end of the Mika Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher battle, and that's my first kind of memories. And then, but most of my earliest memories really of watching F1 were kind of 2007, 8, 9, like when Lewis started. Basically, those are the times I remember most clearly, because obviously in '99 I was 6, and I don't remember much from when I was 6. I don't remember much from last week. So Imola doesn't have that nostalgia for me personally, and also again back in in terms of video games, which is a way a lot of us have got exposure to racing and tracks and cars. I never played the F1 games when I was growing up. I was always more of a Gran Turismo and Forza kind of guy. So I don't have that attachment to Imola. And it's one of them that, the cars, we could see the cars could follow, but the cars are so huge that actually getting the job done is difficult, even with DRS. But yeah, I thought it was a good race. I didn't, again, as well, another thing is that, expectation. If you're expecting, because last year really delivered, and the start of this season has really delivered all in all. So if that becomes your expectation, then that will kind of, and I try and keep my expectations measured, because I've been watching the sport for a long time, and it is as good as it ever has been, I feel, in this last kind of couple of years. Maybe that's recency bias a bit, but also, yes, 2010, 2012, super exciting seasons as well. But yeah, it's trying to kind of level that expectation. And I was watching the BTCC beforehand. I don't know if anyone else in the UK, it was on ITV before. That was quality. You had about 7 cars battling for the lead at the start, and then there was a safety car which kind of broke up the balance of the race. But I would recommend British Touring Cars. First round, Donington Park. It was good fun. Same track that Senna did his greatest drive, arguably. But anyway, right. So, yes, Imola, 5 out of 10. Not bad. Not great. Not bad. It was all right. It was all right as far as I'm concerned. So let's look at the race results, shall we? Max Verstappen with the, what's it called? The thing where you get fastest lap, lead every lap, and win. Grand Slam. There we go. Thank you, Blauwurth. Grand Slam for Max Verstappen. A pretty faultless performance, you have to say. Today, obviously in the sprint race, yesterday, he struggled off the start, but then got Charles back with a fantastic overtake, which, again, I'll deep dive into the drivers a bit more as we go. Great day for Max Verstappen. Thank you, Brian, for the $5. Appreciate it, mate. Were Lewis's struggles more Gasly not passing Alex, even with DRS, or with Hamilton's own car/pace? GR's pace would have gotten done. Lewis, and we'll get on to Lewis in more detail. Let's just say that Lewis was, for sure, he had a bad race. Let's not beat around the bush. Lewis Hamilton did not have a race to remember from his point of view. But also, getting stuck in that DRS train, it's a lot easier said than done to be able to make those moves on a track like Imola. So yeah, I mean, George proved where the pace of that car was, but again, even George was getting caught by Bottas towards the end. Now maybe that was because they couldn't take the wing off the car, whatever. Alfa Romeo was quick. Alfa Romeo was very quick. But yeah, it's a long road ahead. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as Lewis Hamilton famously once said. And yes, Tiago, maybe my predictions are completely in the mud. But fortunately, I made my predictions based on 23 races, not 4 races. So there's plenty of time. All right, plenty of time. Thank you, Edward, as well, for the 189. Red Bull will win every race left except from Monaco. That is doubt, but we'll see. Maybe you're right, Edward. Perez P2. It's a Red Bull 1-2, which, considering Perez was down in P7 after qualifying, turned it around. Gigi Sergio and Lando Norris, McLaren boy, second time at Imola, second podium. But fantastic, smashed it. Russell P4, Mercedes, highest finishing Mercedes by a significant margin. You can see where Lewis is. Bottas P5, fantastic drive. Alfa Romeo. Switch up from a Mercedes, perhaps. Seems that way. Leclerc P6. Oh, Charlie. It could have been not amazing, but it could have been good. Gooder than it was. Sonoda P7. Yuki, man. Such a good drive. Vettel P8. Both Aston Martins in the points. What a turnaround. I put this on Twitter. Aston Martin is so British, all right? Only performs when it's wet and horrible and drizzly outside, okay? That is the most English thing, okay? Both in the points, and K-Mag P9. What could have been, P4 in qualifying. You look at him, still got in the points, but what could have been? And then Albon P11, just out the points, or almost out point. Gasly 12. Hamilton 13, Ocon 14 with that 5-second penalty, finished P11 on the road, dropped back with a 5-second. Zhou Guanyu P15, Nicholas Latifi P16, Schumacher P17, Ricciardo P18, and Alonso Sainz. The Spanish hex continues. Alonso, easily, Fernando Alonso has been the most unlucky driver of the season. And Sainz, he has made his own mistakes, granted, but he's also been very unlucky at times. So it is 100% L Pain for the Spanish Armada in Formula One at the minute. Don't know what Alonso did to deserve that, but there you go. Like he would say, maybe this is long-term karma for him having a go at Honda back in the McLaren days and calling it GP2 engine. Thank you, Kush, for the 40 rupees. What do you think about Daniel and Carlos incident? Oh, we'll get into that. We're on the brisk. We're on the brink. But thank you, Kush. I appreciate that. And thank you, Grumor, as well, for the 199. L Pain confirmed. Living in Spain without the S. No, living in Spain, apparently. If you're Spanish and you're in F1, then the gods aren't on your side. But there you go. Right, okay, so they're the results. And that means, and I have updated them this time, because last week, as you know, everyone was on 71 points last week, okay? Remember? Well, this week, it's changed a bit, okay? So Latifi's lost all of his points, as has Schumacher. We got Charles Leclerc, P1 still, 86 points. Damage limitation in the end for Charles, finishing P6. Did I miss a donut? I think I got all of them. And cheers Forza as well for the 279 Canadian. Much appreciated, Forza. Long term, I always recognise that tyre for the 279 Canadian. George, only drivers to finish top 5 every race. PR63 back again. Leclerc 86, Verstappen 27 points behind, which is, one Leclerc DNF and a max race win, and they're pretty much level. It's funny how quickly things can change. Perez 5 points back, then George, Carlos, Lando, Lewis down in P7. Valtteri only 4 points behind Lewis. It's been a while since he's only been 4 points behind Lewis. Ocon, Magnussen, your top 10, then Ricciardo, Sonoda. 2 drivers still yet to score, Schumacher and Latifi as well. So Stroll got his first point. Seb in the points as well, up to P14. Right. Let's cool, perfect. Right, so that's all done. now let's talk about my driver of the weekend, team of the weekend, struggle of the weekend, blah, blah, blah. All right. So again, as always, on Twitter and on YouTube community, I've asked you lot. I put the poll out like a couple of hours ago, and so you might have seen it. We got like 2,000 responses. So thank you all for if you did, if you saw it, and you did. If you didn't, sorry. But maybe next time. Thank you, Daniel Lopez, as well, for the 50 MX, mate. Thank you. Hot take: Maldonado would perform better than Latifi. Guess my nationality. Venezuelan, funny enough. I don't disagree. Maldonado was rapid on his day. Let's not beat around the bush. Yes, he had a lot of crashes, but the man was rapid. He won a race. Right. So now let's look at my, and especially I feel like this is one of them races where you had either really good performances or quite bad ones. And there weren't that many kind of in the middle, or just like super unlucky, obviously. So picking a driver of the weekend, remember the weekend, not just today. Obviously today's the biggest component because that's where most of the points, although there's a lot more points for offer now on the sprint. But considering everything, for me, my driver W of the weekend is Yuki Tsunoda. I've given it to Yuki. Team Aston Martin, not Red Bull. Driver L of the weekend, Carlos Sainz. And team L of the weekend, I've given it to Alpine. So there you go. And then honourable mentions, so W of the weekend. I mean, I put 3 in here, but I could have also put in Bottas, Vettel, Albon. Who else off the top of my head? Mainly those guys. Apart from the ones obviously on here already. I mean, Perez, I suppose, as well. I mean, I know he's in a Red Bull in P2, but considering qualifying, blah, blah, blah. But yeah. And then in the team, obviously, it's Aston Martin. Red Bull 1-2. Yeah, I mean, it was a great weekend for Red Bull, but I had to give this one to Aston Martin, considering how bad it's been. Lando, obviously, as well. For W of the weekend, I did forget about Lando. But I'm kind of happy with how I've put it. It was in the third honourable mention, it was between Russell and Norris for me, but I think the fact that Jules jumped up so many spots, it really impressed me. And yeah, obviously good day for McLaren. Not so much for the Ricciardo side of the garage, but we'll get onto that. Yuki fanboy, absolutely. End of the weekend, Sainz, Alonso, Hamilton, Schumacher as well, potentially. Like, not a very good race for him. Joey, obviously, he had his incident in the sprint, which kind of ruined his weekend. Latifi again, a mile off. There's a lot of potentials for that as well. And then Team L, obviously, yeah, Alpine. Fernando had to DNF. They did a dodgy pit stop to get Ocon a 5-second penalty because they released him into Lewis. And that's not much more than that. Ferrari, obviously, yeah. What could have been for Ferrari? How much of that was Ferrari's fault? I mean, it's not really Ferrari's fault that what happened. You know, Carlos crashed on his own. I try and look at the team perspective and be like, what did the team do wrong? Like, away from the driver, what did the rest of the team? The driver's part of the team, I get that. But in terms of, like, so for Ocon, like, Alpine released him into the path of Hamilton and he got a penalty. So that's on the team. That's not an Ocon. And then Mercedes for just having a terrible car, really. Relative, obviously. Yes, George finished 4th. It's a relative. When you say Mercedes, it's relative. They're still they're still the third best car. I think today kind of. Yeah, I still think. I think in a straight fight, it's Mercedes over McLaren, but I mean that's tight. That's kind of like the Ferrari McLaren last year. It's now Mercedes McLaren, or McLaren Mercedes because that sounds better. But yeah, Thank you, Eric, for the 32 stars. Seb proven he is class in a terrible car. Seb had a very good drive. But so did Stroll. So both got in the points, which tells you that that car clearly worked better in these conditions. For both drivers to have a much better weekend than they've had so far in the season. But also, yeah, credit to Seb for like pulling out the big points in the end. 4 points is a lot more than one. Thank you, S. Gibbo, for the £2 Alpine. Alpine. I get you. I thought you were saying Alpine. There's Albon, there's Alpine, there's Alonso. Why don't we call him Fernando Alonso if it's Alex Albon and Alpine? Fernando Alex Albon and Alpine Alonso. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of ALs in F1. And thank you, Nicholas, for the €3. I really, really, really want to see Mick performing, which there's been signs, but it's not been incredible. Let's be honest. It's not been impeccable from Michaelis Schumacher. Thank you, Marek, as well, for the 100 check. Lewis will retire during the summer break. Wow. I know that's not going to happen, but maybe. I don't think so. I think his frustration will be unsustainable at the moment. He looks like he doesn't even care. Getting passed by Max today must be a huge confidence slap in the face. Look, I mean, Lewis went to that team when they were in the mud. They weren't a top team when he went there, and he helped, having a driver. Of course, he was a huge component in turning that team around and delivering 8 constructors titles in a row. Is it going to be harder? Of course, going from a team that's nothing and turning it into something. There's the motivation at the start because you haven't achieved, and then when you've gone from achieving loads and then all of a sudden now you're in the mud, that mentally must be a much harder transition to make. You know what I mean? Like, just you can compare that to anything in life. If you're not doing well and then you do well, the feeling you had at the start when you weren't doing well, when you just started on something, must be a lot better than the feeling of when you fall off and the performance falls off. You know what I mean? But there you go. Thank you, Marek. I appreciate that. Thank you, Vessel, for joining Friends of Tommo. Much appreciated. Thank you, Chad, for the $2. Do you think Sainz will win a race this year? Absolutely, he will. His time will come. Carlos Sainz's time will come. No question. But yeah. And Susk, thank you for the 100 rupees. Will Lewis go through Vettel 2020? No, I don't like. Lewis was, George made a fantastic start, was able to maximise on the performance of his car. Lewis wasn't able to do that today. So, yes, George had the stronger drive than Lewis, no question, but also it's not as when you look at the results of Russell 4, Hamilton 13, that doesn't really tell the full story, in my opinion. There's not a gulf of 9 places of quality between the two of them. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying George didn't get stuck in a DRS train. So, and thank you, Louis, for joining Friends of Tommo, or Lewis, however it's pronounced. I apologise if I got it wrong. So yeah, they're kind of mine. But now for yours. Your winners and losers are as follows. Boom. 37% of the vote went to Max Emilian Verstappen. But that's quite a low, high percent, like top driver percentage. So it tells you there was a lot of, there was a big range of drivers voted for. Followed by Lando Norris, 26% of the vote. George Russell, 10%. Yuki Tsunoda, 9%. I mean, it's pretty flawless from Max, wasn't it? Team of the weekend, 79% though went for Red Bull, 13% Aston Martin. So there was an Aston Martin contingent out there. I see you. Alpha 5%, good weekend, great weekend for Bottas. Just shame about Joey. and McLaren 2%. Driver L of the weekend. I mean, it was close between Lewis and Carlos, but Lewis took it, 39% of the vote over Sainz 36%. Leclerc got 12% of the vote, Ricciardo 6%. And then Team L of the weekend, 65% went for Ferrari, which obviously makes sense. Alpine 19%, Mercedes 10%, Williams 3%. Okay, there you go. Lots of winners, lots of losers. Now let's go through the teams one by one, okay? We'll start with Williams because that's the first one that came up on screen. So, okay, cool. Another really good race from Alex Albon. P11 in the end, one position off point. And again, considering where that car appears to be, considering his brakes caught fire in Q1 on Friday, and considering in the sprint he wasn't really able to make too many inroads, I think a P11 is a fantastic result ahead of faster cars. Held off. I mean, I'll tell you what. Like, there was a lot of coverage. Obviously, there was a lot of coverage of Gasly, Hamilton, Albon once the DRS was turned on in particular. But Alex was able to kind of hold the pressure, and Gasly wasn't able to get past him in a car which, the AlphaTauri's a quicker package than the Williams. And, I guess obviously Gasly, knowing that Lewis was behind, kind of inhibited his ability to attack Alex. But Alex was getting the power down, coming out of that final corner, and without DRS, keeping Gasly behind, and brought it home. That must have taken a huge amount of concentration. And there you go. Another great day for Alex Albon. And it's just facts. I don't need to be biased for this one because it's just facts. Thank you, winner loser, for the 5 Canadian. Do you think that Aston Martin could turn the results from today into comeback like McLaren, or is it too early to tell? It's too early to tell because it was changeable conditions, and there were a lot of trains. You feel like if qualifying hadn't gone so well for Vettel, and fairly well for Stroll as well. Wait, where did he qualify? I can't even remember. I mean, I still think, it's the Williams is the worst car, then the Aston Martin. I don't think that's changed. But what I was thinking about earlier is you've got kind of, we've had a few seasons now where, look at last year, obviously the Haas was nowhere near the points, and you look at certain teams, Alfa Romeo looked nowhere near the points at times. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of cars now that can potentially, on their day, the fact that both Aston Martins got in the points is super encouraging. Pardon me. And it's nice to see that there isn't. Yes, Williams and Aston Martin seem to be the slowest, but it's not like they're a million miles off. So they have now. Every single team has got at least 1 point. Within 4 races, every single team has got into the top 10, which is like super encouraging. For that battle, kind of the lower midfield to the higher midfield. Obviously, yes, Ferrari, Red Bull have kind of checked out the front, but so great race for Alex. Latifi, another very, very difficult weekend. There's not really much to say about Nicholas. What is there to say? He was a long way off. Again, you have to compare drivers to their teammates. You look at the pace. It was not like Latifi was caught in a train going slower. Like, if anything, he was keeping up Joe for a significant period of the race. And like, Nicky needs to find a solution. He needs to work out why he's so far off Alex. Because do I think all of the gap is driver talent? I don't. Like, Nicholas Latifi, he clearly has some talent. He clearly has some ability. Do I think Alex is the better driver? Of course. But do I think that accounts for 100% of the difference between the two of them? No. I think Alex is just, I don't know, he seems a lot happier with the car, and that must be, to do with what he's bringing in terms of information and setup to the car. And I agree that, you know, if we're looking at these drivers as being in the top, you know, echelon of racing drivers in the world, is Latifi part of that? No, of course he's not. He's had his results on his day, but it's been a shocking start to the season. No question. He needed to be getting close, if not matching Albon, to really prove, given this is his third year at the same team, that he is here on merit, and it hasn't gone that way. So it's difficult to find excuses for him. You know what I mean? I always try and look at these situations and try and understand the context and nuance and, you know, all the factors that, you know, it's easy to just look at a result and be like, oh, that driver good, that driver bad. But there's often a lot more to it than that. But I can't think of any explanation beyond he's not good enough. So there you go. And also, yeah, the Williams running a proper carbon livery here. Do I prefer it? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I still don't like I like it from a side profile. I just don't like the nose. I don't like the random like bit that just angles down like a triangular swoosh thing on the nose. Not a fan of that still. But there you go. So yeah, Williams, no points, but P11 Alex Albon, pretty good. Okay, let's talk about Aston Martin McCutcheon, shall we? Fantastic weekend for Aston. Great job from Seb in qualifying to get into Q3. That's huge. And yeah, I mean, again, there is no doubt in my mind that if any driver is going to unlock the potential of this car, it's Sebastian Vettel and not Lance Stroll. Okay. Given how much more experience Lance already has in this car compared to Seb, yes, Lance had a good weekend. Seb had a better one. Yeah, I mean, it's encouraging. Obviously, the changeable conditions, the fact we started on inters and there was DRS trains, I think does mask and maybe does flatter them a bit. But they made the most of the situation, and Vettel did really well to kind of hold on to that P8 in the end, hold on to that position on track when you had, you know, quicker drivers, arguably, quicker cars, should I say, behind. So, yeah, I mean, it's good for Aston Martin, but let's not get carried away. I think there's still huge problems with that car. And I don't know what kind of weather we're expecting in Miami. I'm assuming it's going to be hot and dry. And I don't know. I feel like unless there's big upgrades, it'll be back to Q1 exit for both drivers if it's in kind of normal warm conditions. But it was very cold. It was, you know, intermediate weather. There was the talk of rain that didn't really come up. But I do think this is, I've got no reason to believe this isn't a bit of an outlier of a result. But it's great confidence for the team. And both cars got home in the end with no incidents, which hasn't happened like so much this season, unfortunately for them. But happy days. Thank you, Sava. As a Ferrari fan, I'm sad today. However, having a close championship will be fun. The Williams seem to be shedding weight with less paint. Imola lower rated than Australia makes no sense, but fine. I mean, I gave Australia 6, and this is 5, so there's not much in it. I thought Australia was quite good. It was just above average, and this was about average. There you go. But thank you, Sava. I appreciate it. Any more to say on Aston Martin? Not really. Next, let's talk about Alpine. Yeah, not great. Once again, so you had Esteban had a gearbox issue, so couldn't make qualifying. Didn't really make any headway in the sprint. Made decent progress. You know, he was P11 on the road at the end, but the pit lane release gave him a 5-second penalty, so he fell back to P14. Not that it would have mattered in the end, because he would have been out the points anyway. And considering the potential early on of this Alpine, I mean, where are they in the championship? They are, so what you've got Ocon P9 with 20 points. They've got 22 points I mean, the potential of that car, when you look at all teams, right? Well, not when I say potential, I mean the actual known potential, not the theoretical potential. The ability of their car, the Alpine, the gap between that and how many points they've scored, I think for Alpine is bigger than any other team. They've thrown away through, the car not being reliable most of the time for Fernando. Because Fernando could have scored a shit ton of points, for want of a better word, so far this season, but he's been so unlucky. He's only got 2 points. It's mad. But yeah, not a good day for Alpine. Also, again, Fernando's super unlucky. Mick kind of loses it, and his rear left, as it's like spinning around, just clips his side pod, and that's enough to damage it. So that when you're going down the straight, it rips off, and then boom, you got to retire the car, ain't you? Unfortunately, you can have as much gaffer tape in the world as you like, but they ain't fixing that side pod. So, yeah, very, very unfortunate weekend for Fernando Alonso again. Which this must be like winding him up now, because he's actually got a quick car. This is arguably, it's definitely top of the, like in the top. It's around the McLaren and the Mercedes. It's in that group, I think. And from what we've seen so far anyway, the points do not reflect that at all. So, Alpine, je suis pain for... Oh, yeah, pain like bread in French. Du pain. Is that how you pronounce it? Pain. Pain. If you're French. I don't know. I'm sorry. Thank you, Deeb, for the... Not many French people. If you're French, can you say hello in the live chat? There's like... When I look through my analytics, there's no French people who watch me. Comment t'appelles-tu? Je m'appelle Thomas. What's going on? Thank you, Dave, for the $5. Mine will be interesting since it's really humid and often rains. Interesting. That's cool. Didn't know that. So there might be a chance of wet race plus other conditions similar to Singapore. A wet night race. Spicy. Salut to all my French viewers. Yeah, there's like no French people. I'm gonna take a moment to go on my analytics and find out, right? Considering how many of you exist, okay, I want to look at how low down you are on my analytics. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing to isolate? I love Esteban Ocon. He's like one of my favourite drivers. What more could I do? I have to do the whole stream I have to learn French and do the entire stream. Right, where's audience? Sorry, don't mind me. I'm just finding out. Okay, top geographies in the last 28 days. So, in first place, we have the United Kingdom with 20.6%. So only just over a fifth of you are British, like me. Then the USA, 17.3%. Howdy to my Americans out there. Then Germany, 5%. Australia, Canada, Netherlands, India, Italy, Sweden, Ireland, South Africa, Indonesia, Norway, Portugal, Philippines, Spain, Brazil, Finland, Denmark, Austria, Malaysia, then France. Wow. Why? There's so many French people, yet none of you like me. I find it fascinating, the analytics. They're crazy. But anyway, there you go. Cool. Alpine done. Right, let's talk about... so I'll go through some more countries. So after France, it is Mexico, Poland, Belgium, Switzerland, Greece, Singapore, New Zealand, Romania, Hungary, Czech Republic, United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, Turkey, Croatia, Thailand, Argentina, Slovakia, Slovenia, Russia, Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, Kenya, Israel, Japan, Lithuania, Latvia, and it's showing the top 50. Estonia is P50. Big up anyone from Tallinn. I'd love to go to Tallinn. Thank you, Brian, for the $10. Who do you favour in both championships? If Red Bull reliability is fixed, their pace is scary. Would be P1 in both championships without the early reliability troubles. 2022, another historic battle. It's a big question. It's a big question, Brian. I still feel like I feel like Leclerc still has the momentum. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Sergio's really picked it up, hasn't he? I feel like Sergio's really going to be up there, getting those constructors points in as well. So I don't know, man. I'm not. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't put money on it. That's all I'm saying, Brian. It's too close. Yes, Adam, it is exactly like a VPN list. Surfshark, do it. Use code Tommo for 83% off. Right, okay, cool. Next team, we're going to talk about Alpha Tauri now. Okay, yeah, well, look, I mean, this is one of them weekends where Yuki Tsunoda had the better of his teammate, of Pierre Gasly. Out-qualified him, but both cars went out in Q1, which makes Yuki finishing P7 all the more impressive. Because that car was clearly struggling, okay? Qualifying, poor day out, both cars struggling. He still out-qualified Pierre. Almost put Lewis out in Q1. By 0.004 of a second, he was slower. Imagine. That would have been insane. I almost called it as well in the quality stream, but I didn't because I'm a fraud. So Yuki, great race. Again, he's got, I still believe, and he's starting to show it now. Yeah, not a great weekend for Pierre. Obviously, was caught up behind Alex for most of the race. He also had the crash, didn't he, in the sprint? Which you got to wonder, if he doesn't have that tangle with Zhou Guanyu, then you got to wonder where that could have been, because obviously he fell right to the back. So that was a bit of a racing incident. I feel like that one in the sprint. I don't feel there was massive blame to be cast in one direction or the other. But yeah, Yuki delivered. Clean race, good battling, good defending, good attacking. And P7, where you look at where that car was at the start of the weekend, it's a massive result for Yuki Tsunoda. I'm super happy for him. It was his home race because he lives just around the corner, because that's their home race and he lives in Faenza, because they don't let him loose in Milton Keynes anymore, as we saw on Drive to Survive. They still don't look fantastic. They don't still look like the fourth best car, which is what I was anticipating going into this year. But all in all, chuff for Yuki. Not a great weekend for Pierre, but again, we don't know after that sprint, what could have been. Could have been a bit better for him. But yeah, Yuki smashed it. I'm well happy for him. And yeah, the AlphaTauri, the car just looks okay. It doesn't look amazing. It doesn't look terrible. It looks okay. I feel like now it's like favourite drivers right now. Obviously, Alex, he's top of that clearly, and I love Esteban, and I've always been a big fan of Yuki. I was flying his flag when he was in F2, and I had kept on to that belief, and I feel like he's really starting to show that now, that potential, But yeah, they probably had a more competitive car last year. I think that's a fair point to make. Right, okay. AlphaTauri done. Let's now talk about the other Alfa Romeo. Yeah, Joey had a probably his weakest weekend so far. Got caught up in that incident with Pierre in the sprint. His quali, he went out in Q1 as well, didn't he? So not a great weekend for Zhou Guanyu. His first kind of real struggle weekend. It was always going to happen. He's a rookie. It's going to take time. I think he did have an exceptionally good start to the season, just keeping it clean. But yeah, not great from Zhou. But Valtteri Bottas, delivering in qualifying once again, getting into Q3. Sprint was, I can't really remember what. Oh, did Joe go out in Q2? Oh, fair enough. I thought he was out in Q3. Never mind. Yeah, Valtteri, good race. And then, yeah, the pace was good throughout. Kept it clean, good battles. Look, again, this the perception of Valtteri Bottas was very difficult to kind of fully analyse, because he was getting these 1 year deals. He was clearly the number 2 in the team. I think this has been such a breath of fresh air for him to go to a team where he can shape and mould that in his own direction. And I think we're getting the best out of Bottas, which, you look at the last kind of couple of years, and qualifying's really been his strength, and in the races he's been quite weak. But really strong race from Valtteri, and it's good to see. Like, it's really nice to see, because he didn't get the call up to Mercedes for nothing. Like, back in the Williams days, he was rapid. And they saw that. They took him on. He did a fantastic job of that team for 8 years, doing the job to get the constructors' titles. Didn't get the championship he wanted, but ultimately, changing environment. This is going from Brackley to Switzerland, and it's a whole new dynamic for him. And he doing a really good job. Only 4 points behind Lewis. That's what I mean. It's as close as he's been to Lewis for so long. But there you go. Well done, Valtteri. Smashed it, mate. Very good. Very good. Yeah, cool. Right. Okay. Next, let's talk about Haas, shall we? It's not all in all, considering where they were in qualifying, where you had Mick was P11, wasn't he? Or 12, something like that. And then, obviously, Kamo put it P4. Best qualifying result in the team's history. Fantastic. Well done. Wrong tyre, clearly. He said it himself afterwards. Wrong tyre for the sprint. Went on the mediums, fell, and didn't get enough tyre back at the end to fight back through. And, not great in the end. But I think Kev did... That car was clearly, like, it didn't quite have the pace of the Alfa Romeo. It didn't quite have the pace of the McLaren or George in the Mercedes, or Yuki in the AlphaTauri either. So, yeah, it kind of started to slowly fall back. But look, it's still points. Another 2 points for K-Mag. It's still, like, compared to where they were last year, I think they've got a lot to build on now. And, I'm chuffed for Haas, man. I think they've done a really good job. And then, Mick, just... And I saw what do you say? Mix on fraud watch. Look, I mean, last year was always going to be impossible to really get a measure of Mick, because we knew that Nikita wasn't it, and he was smashing him every week. But now with K-Mag, a proven known entity, Formula One driver alongside you, I think Mick's going to learn a lot more. I think that really, having such a weak teammate really would have adversely affected his learning experience of his first year of Formula One. Because when you've got an experienced teammate, you can, okay, what's Kev doing? What, blah, blah, blah. You work together. And it sounds like, Kev's a pretty open book with Mick, and they're trying to work together. And a few mistakes from Mick. Not fantastic. But, what will be, will be. What will be, will be. I still got belief. Do I think Mick Schumacher's got the same potential as a, Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, Russell, of these kind of young, really, really exciting drivers? No, I don't see that. I've not seen enough to say that. But, he's quick. He's just liable to a mistake. But it's his second year in F1, so... With that context, I can give him a bit of a benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Bit of benefit of the doubt. Thank you, Alberto, for the $5. Come on, Checo. We'll talk about Red Bull next, as you've said that, Alberto. Thank you, Robert, as well, for the €10. Tommo, would you promise to never start a stream again where the Merseyside derby is still on? I was watching that the first half. It was a bit tasty, wasn't it? Richarlison going, I don't know how I feel about Jamie Carragher being on the comms for the Merseyside derby. I don't know. He was just like, get out, Richard. I was like, of course he's going to say that. Then again, I come here and see, You heap deserved praise on Bottas, so all is well. I will give praise to everyone and anyone when they do a good job. And he did a great job today. So he deserves praise. But yeah, thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Thank you, Stephen, as well, for the $5. Has the third best, I'd argue. Well, we didn't see that today, did we? Kev was falling back down through the field. It's so difficult to really get a measure on the leaderboard of the cars because different cars, like if you're talking low speed, medium speed, high speed, you've got massive variation in how these cars perform. So I wouldn't say they're third best. I think, yes, granted, in certain tracks they've been stronger, but I think Mick's not a mile off. I think he'll get there. I have belief that he will get there. And thank you, Duncan, mate. Appreciate it for the $20. Very kind of you, Duncan. Thank you very much. What brings me happiness and sadness all at once? Daniel Ricciardo. Love him, but that race was sadness and pain. Yeah, it all ended very abruptly, didn't it, for Daniel? We'll talk about McLaren after we talk about Red Bull. But thank you, Duncan. Very kind of you. Right. Where's Red Bull on my graphic? There he is. Boom. Boom. There it is. The Oracle Red Bull Racing. Fantastic weekend. All in all, as a team. 1-2. Happy days. Maximum points for Max. Won the sprint. Won the race. What more can you say? The only thing that went wrong for Max, seemingly, was in the sprint where he kind of lost it a bit off the line. My understanding is that he created too much wheel spin, which then prompted the gear sync thing to that's what Christian Horner said anyway. So was it partially Max's fault that he had a bad start? Yes. But he still made up for it. He still got the move done. That move in the sprint race was a quality move, by the way. Like, he made that look easy, but that's not an easy move to make. He literally, the timing on the brakes, we saw it in the race with Russell when he tried to get past Magnussen and just went a little bit too deep and bumped. Like, Max just absolutely got that perfect on the brakes. Made the move, and then in the race he was untouchable, and it's a Grand Slam finish. Thoroughly deserves. He was the people's driver of the weekend. Thoroughly deserves that title. Don't get me wrong, I gave it to Yuki, but he definitely deserves it. Yeah, amazing. Like, great result for Max. A nice, clean, no reliability issues. That's what they needed. Lights to flag, boom, Red Bull. And as much as I'd love to see Charles Leclerc take the title for sure. Yeah, Max has got one now. But I want to see the title being close. So I'm happy I'm happy with the table now. Happier with the table now than I was before this weekend. Okay. Because yeah, I want it to go to the end. I want it to be a battle. Yeah, I'd like to see. If I had to choose between the two, I'd pick Charles because he hasn't won one before. But ultimately, I don't really care who wins. Just like last season, as long as it's a good battle, I don't really care. But yeah, fantastic result from Max Verstappen in his... How many seasons? He's had 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20... This is his seventh year in Formula One. What was I doing 7 years ago? 7 years ago, I was still at university 7 years ago. Jesus Christ. Oh yeah, 2015. Eight years ago. I wasn't even in my final year of university 8 years ago. I forgot he had 15. Oh, 8 years ago, I was still living at my parents' house on my placement year. I hadn't even started my final year. That's crazy. Like, the amount of experience Max has got. We talk about age, but the experience he's got in F1. He's only got... Checo has been in the sport 12 years. No, Ricciardo... When was Ricciardo's first season? Ricciardo's first season was 2012. Perez's was 2011. Ricciardo's was 2012. So he's only got like 3 years less than Ricciardo. Ricciardo was 2012, wasn't he? Was it 2011? I'm sure. I thought it was 2012. Oh, HRT. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, true. Hurt. You don't got the knowledge. Fraudulent. He didn't do a full season though, did he? His first full season was 2012. Because, when I was doing the only drivers so Perez's first full season was 2011. So, and that was the first season of DRS. Because there's only 4 drivers: Vettel, Hamilton, Alonso, Hulkenberg, who have raced pre-DRS. But there you go. Anyway, what was I talking about? Max has just got loads of experience, and it shows. What can I say? What were you lot doing 8 years ago? Tell me in the live chat. What was happening in your life 8 years ago? 8 years ago. Come on. What was happening in your life in 2015? This is the time now. If you're listening, you're not in the live chat, and you're watching afterwards, just ponder what was going on in your life in 2015. You were 11. God, some of you are so young. Working as a pharmacist. I like that. GCSEs. Throwback. High school. Because in the UK, well, I didn't think so anyway. I thought you called it secondary school. It's primary school, secondary school. But Hannah calls it high school from year 7 to year 11. And I was, you think you are? You're not American. You're British. British. Bottle of water. Mad. But yeah, anyway, when all that was happening, Max had just started in Formula 1. 17 years of age. Joke. But anyway, right. So yeah, great result for Max. And again, shout out Sergio. Yes, he was away down the road by the end, but he did the job. He kept Charles at bay. And what more can you say? That's exactly what Red Bull have needed now. Arguably, when was the last time Red Bull had a teammate for Max Verstappen who, because you had Webber with Vettel, and Webber, he didn't always put up a fight, but he, after multi-21 and all that, he always wanted to take it to Seb. Ricciardo kind of always wanted to take it to Max. And then Gasly and Albon were nowhere near. Perez was nowhere near last year either. But now Perez is near enough to support Max, but also isn't, as we've seen so far, going to step on his toes either. Multi-21 Seb. So I think this is the dream scenario for Red Bull, because again, you've got a Ferrari partnership there where Sainz really wants to mount a challenge, but as we're going to talk about, it didn't go his way. Kvyat did get a rough deal, to be fair, but then I think it was proved afterwards that Kvyat wouldn't have been the right driver. I think Ricciardo was still the right choice over him, between him and Kvyat. I said this before. If Kvyat was the right choice, he would have got that 2019 seat after Gasly got dropped. But he didn't do a good enough job against Albon. So there you go. Cool. Yeah, but Sergio smashed it. Super happy for him. Checo continues to bring the points and be that consistent number 2, which ironically, Sainz isn't being that back up to Charles so far this season because he's made too many mistakes. The teams have made mistakes as well. He's got unlucky. Don't get me wrong. But also Carlos hasn't been at the consistent levels that he was last year, seemingly. So he's just got to try and get himself out of this rut. You know what I mean? He's got to get himself out of the rut. All right, Red Bull done. I said I would talk about McLaren next, so that's exactly what we're going to do. McLaren, boom. So look at Bahrain, bloody hell. McLaren's up and down season continues. What they were quality in Spain, then they were terrible in Bahrain, and then they were terrible in the race in Bahrain, and then they've just been gradually, and now the car's looking good. And yeah, Lando, I'll put this on Twitter. The debate around Lando Norris, whether he's top tier or not, can now end. He's clearly, for me, in the same level as Russell, clearly. And I think, to be honest, like Verstappen and Leclerc, I don't think they're too far ahead of him. I think they're ahead of him, but I don't think they're too far ahead of him. I think he's 100% capable of being on their level. No question. No question. He's so consistent. Just the delivery of performance and the drives has just been so impressive. 4th year in Formula One now. Yeah, man. Like I've said it. Like, when he first came into the sport, I was a bit of a doubter. I was like, I don't think he's on the level of George. I didn't think he was really close. I wasn't convinced at the start, but as time's gone on, you know, it's unquestionable. You know, he's got so much potential and he's delivering on it. And yeah, I'm chuffed for him. Another fantastic drive, and look, it's true. Yeah, Max does have double the experience Lando has. This is his 8th year in Formula One. It's Lando's 4th. So as time goes on, because Max is already like you think how good Max is right now. Can Max get even better? Maybe, but it's that diminishing returns. I think Max is so close to his ceiling now, whereas I think Lando, with that bit more experience, I think that ceiling starts to, you know, you've got that. Law of diminishing returns is a thing. Lewis, did I miss your super chat, mate? I'm sorry if I miss your super chat. I'll try and find it at the end of the stream because I can't see it on screen. But yeah, another great result. P3. Boom. Yeah, obviously fortunate with Charles dropping out. Would have been an easy P4 in the end. And then, yeah, obviously Daniel hasn't had a bad start to the season. He's been, you know, fairly close. Still behind Lando, which isn't what he wants and isn't what I think he's capable of, because I think he is capable of being on that level. But yeah, he kind of carried a little bit too much speed. And obviously, where he caught the kind of paint, that made the car kind of understeer a bit. He was at fault for sure for the incident with Sainz, and that ruined both of their races. Well, it ended Carlos's race, and it ruined Daniel's. I think it just turned into a bit of a test session, didn't it? In the end, a bit of a test session. Stuck the hard tyres on for some reason. Yeah, and that was it. I mean, again, Imola's not a track where you can really move through the field when there are those trains. There are those dirty air trains, otherwise known as DRS trains. Yeah, so still not a great start to see. Not a great race, obviously. It's a bad race for Daniel, clearly. But it's not. I don't think it's anything to. It's not going to be like last season. I don't think like that gap isn't going to be as significant. And I think, you know, he's been unfortunate. He's been unfortunate. But yeah, not a day to remember for Daniel Avocado. Right, I just want to double check the old super duper checks. Just make sure I haven't missed any, because I think. Oh yeah, Lewis, thank you, mate. Lewis, that's a huge question for 179. Your top 5 best and top 5 worst drivers on the grid. Oh, God. I mean, I think I'll give you one. I think the best driver on the grid, the driver this season, and I'll ask you lot as well. Who do you think, after 4 races, who do you think has been the strongest driver so far this season? I think it might actually be Verstappen over Leclerc, just because Leclerc's mistake today. Because that was a pretty rookie error to just drop it going through the chicane on your own. And then worst driver Latifi, of course. I can't give 5. That's too many. Like, there's people like take. You know, people will. If I say something, then there's people who will hold that against me for the rest of my life. Like this will be like in 20 years' time, they'll be like, in 2022, you said that Lando Norris was the 3rd best driver. How dare you? Like, shut up. So I'm sorry. Thank you, Mattia, for the €2. Ricciardo is quicker than Lando this year. Love you. It's not true though, is it? It's not true, Mattia. But I appreciate the support. But that's not true. And thank you, Sad, for the 50 SARs, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Very kind. Cool. Did I miss any others? Don't think I have. No, cool. Perfect. Right. Next, how many more teams we've got to talk about? We've got to talk about Mercedes, haven't we? There we go. Mercedes. Well, George maximised the weekend. I think George has been very, very good this year. You consider this is a new team. Yes, I know he knows the team and he knows the team pretty well, more than most drivers do when they're new drivers go into a new team. George has been fantastic so far this season. He's really delivered on this potential that we saw at Williams, but it was always difficult to quantify. How good is he? Because we'd only seen him against, Kubica, who wasn't prime Kubica anymore, of course, and Latifi, who's, we're clearly seeing now that he's not at the level. George has been super impressive. And yeah, man, like it's a good sign for Mercedes because there was always that kind of unknown around George slightly. I was pretty sure, I'm pretty sure George is the minerals, but it wasn't like 100%, and I think he's coming now. And he's been the stronger driver, I think, over these first 4 races. I think he's been the slightly stronger driver out of the two. They've been very close, but I think George is, if you take the names away and you just look at that, I'm not just talking about the points. Yes, I know George is ahead on points, but I'm just looking at the performances, thinking back to Bahrain, to Saudi, to Australia, to this weekend. I think George has had the slightly stronger start to the season, which is obviously I mean, it's not great for Mercedes, but look, if anything from Mercedes, you would want, if your new driver's coming in and doing as good as Lewis Hamilton, at least as good. He's doing at least as good. You might disagree with me. You might think, oh, actually, Lewis, he's doing at least as good as Lewis in these first 4 races. And that's a good thing for Mercedes because George is the future, and it shows that George is at the level. He is good enough, clearly, to sit alongside Lewis Hamilton. I'm chuffed for him. Doing a fantastic job. Thank you, Harshvarden. Thank you very much. Harshvarden. I'm sorry if I pronounced that weird. For joining Friends of Tommo, I appreciate it. And thank you, Oliver, for the £2. So happy that the cool down rooms are back. People wonder where the cool down podcast name comes from. The podcast will be back soon. I just really want my desk. It's really actually kind of get me down a bit, not having my desk, because I'm really struggling to work. These live streams have been great because I can just bang them together and we can just chat. But actually working on my videos, I've found a real drain with the house move, with going away. So I'm just getting into a rant here. I just really want my desk so I can set up in that room. And that's big first world problems, but I'm just being real. Thank you, Daniel, as well for the £2. Thoughts on FI bottling the DRS being activated? It was a strange one, wasn't it? I think obviously it was still. Yes, obviously you can have a dry line, but there was still a dry line. Basically, that it wasn't like the whole track was dry. There was a dry line. It was wet outside, and obviously the thing with DRS is that you open up the flap, but then you have to go off of the dry line and brake with DRS open. Obviously, it closes when you brake. Carrying that extra speed, braking on the wet stuff. That I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Like, to be honest, I don't know. I don't feel that, as much as I feel like I've got good knowledge of motorsport and motor racing, I don't feel that I've got an educated enough opinion of racing. I think we should be listening to racing drivers if they're talking about DRS when there is a dry line, but also the rest of the track's kind of damp. You know what I mean? Because I understand from a safety point of view, right, oh sweet, DRS open, both on a dry line, boom, right in front of the other, boom, and then you pull out onto the wet stuff with your DRS open, and then you got a brake. I can get why they might deem that unsafe. And I'm not just saying that to pander, I'm just trying to understand why because that must have been the reason why. I don't see any other reason. But also, like, we'll go into more about DRS at the end, because I do want to talk a bit more about that. But yeah, that's kind of that. There are my thoughts on why it happened. Do I think it should have been opened earlier? On the face of it, yes, but I'm not. That's not something I'm super like. Yes, they should have definitely opened it earlier, because I don't feel like I'm not a race car driver. I've never driven a car with DRS, so I don't feel like I'm educated enough. Sometimes you just got to be like, you know what? I don't really know. I don't feel confident enough in my assertion to make a big one. So there you go. Exactly, Brian. Cool down room providing free ads for my podcast. Exactly, podcast that I don't even do anymore. I will be doing it again soon. Don't worry. And thank you, Emma, for the $14.99 Aussie dollars, mate. There's a belief on Twitter that Lewis has an extra 2.5 kilos from sensors. I thought it was 1.5 kilos. I read 1.5. Even though Merck said it's only an extra couple of grams and doesn't make a difference. Plus, George easily had an extra 2.5 kg on Lewis. I'm not sure, MA. All I know is that Lewis was running sensors in Australia that as far as I remember reading, it accounted for about 1.5 kilos of extra, weight to the car. That's what I remember reading. I thought it was 1.5. I don't know what happened this weekend, though. I don't remember seeing anything or reading anything about Lewis with sensors. So I'm pretty sure it was 1.5 last weekend. It might have been more this weekend. I don't know. But anyway, because weight does matter. Weight does, affect everything. But also, you've got to remember this weekend, Part Ferme was enforced after qualifying. So in FP2 on Saturday, you couldn't make fundamental changes to the car just to kind of aero, like wing angles and that. You're in Part Ferme earlier on in the weekend. You're not in Part Ferme after qualifying on Saturday. You're in Part Ferme after qualifying on Friday. So you've got, instead of having 3 practice sessions to get your car and qualifying to get your car set up for how you want it to be in the race, you've only got 1 practice session. But anyway, and then Lewis, not a good race for Lewis, in any way, shape or form. He was, obviously his track position massively compromised his race because he was caught in that train. At least Gasly was between him and Albon. Otherwise, we all know what would have happened. Okay, because these things come in threes, don't they? Not a good race for Lewis. Not a good race for Mercedes. Toto's team radio after, saying this car isn't the car that you deserve. And look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. No team in Formula One is owed success. Okay, Red Bull dominated from 2010 to 2013. Didn't win another championship till 2022. At 21, sorry. And maybe they'll win it this year. Who knows? But, Ferrari, Schumacher, dominance. Fernando comes in, takes a couple. Yes, Ferrari win in 2007, but then we haven't seen a World Drivers' Championship since then. Williams used to clean up back in the 90s. Lotus back in the day. Brabham. So many names. But no team is owed success. And Mercedes have clearly gone for something different. We can see that with our own eyes. They sound like they're still confident that they can, unlock this theoretical performance. But they're not the only team saying this. And they are where they are. And I don't know. We don't know, But all I'm saying is that, yes, Mercedes has been successful, massively successful, the most successful team in this turbo hybrid era, no question. But these other teams aren't mugs. There's a cost cap now. There's a slider development scale. There are these factors now which won't necessarily allow them to get back and achieve the level of success that they have in the past. And yeah, it porpoises like mad. I mean, I know the Ferrari porpoises a lot, which again, the Ferrari's quick and porpoises, so that on its own isn't an excuse. But the Mercedes is like fully bottoming out and kicking up sparks and that. It looks mad. But yeah, look, it's not good. It's not good. The car's not good. And yeah, I think this is going to take a big turnaround. Obviously, look, George is still sitting P3 in the driver's title, and they're still sitting P3 in the constructors. So all things considered, it's been damaged imitation, and George has been bringing the points in. But yeah, I think it's going to be a long season. And again, they not only have to fix their problems, but they have to then improve the car at a rate quicker than everyone else. And, you know, clearly Red Bull and Ferrari have a very, very solid architecture, a very, very solid foundation in their car, and they can now improve on that. Mercedes have got to fix their problems and then do that. Wait, isn't it? Oh, George P4, sorry. George P4. I forgot about Verstappen. I was like, Leclerc, Perez, because Verstappen was like 6th before this race. I was like, oh yeah, Verstappen won the sprint and the main race. There you go. But yeah, George P4. But then the team's P3 in the constructors. So yeah. Not good for Mercedes. Right, who else? So I've talked about them. So that leaves one team to talk about, and then we'll wrap this one up, which is not McLaren, it's Ferrari. Ferrari, still top of the Drivers' Championship. Are they still top of the Constructors? It's pretty close, isn't it? But anyway, yeah, Ferrari, you know, clearly didn't have the performance of Red Bull this weekend, which is encouraging because they looked so dominant. Charles looked so dominant in Australia that, there was a bit of concern. But look, we're sports fans. We're guilty of jumping to conclusions after seeing minimal evidence. That's just what we do. So yeah, I think that there were concerns around that, but this weekend has shown that, yes, that Red Bull is very much up there and was quicker this weekend, was the quicker package, and Max delivered on that. Sergio delivered on that. Charles should have delivered at least a P3. Do I think he would have got past Sergio? I don't. I think he would have finished third. And then, yeah, just pushing to try and close that gap to Sergio. Takes too much curb, spins it, hits the wall. Lucky to finish the race at all. Because that could have caused a lot more damage. Hit that kind of bang side on, which kind of minimised the damage, so it was only really front wing, because he hit that at a reasonable. Like we've seen cars disintegrate hitting the wall at way less speed before. It's just how you hit the wall. And Charles has been pretty, on it this year. I think out of kind of desperation to, it's one of them, isn't it? It's like, you push that extra 1%, you make the mistake, and then you fall back from P3 to P6, which is what? P3 is 15 points. P6 is 8 points, isn't it? I think it's 8. And I think, it's easy to say in hindsight, it's easy to be critical. I think, Charles was obviously desperate to try and get that P2 off of Sergio. The potential of gaining 3 points relative to P3 versus losing, 7 points, dropping down to P6. Like, it's easy to say now it wasn't worth it, but a rare mistake so far from what we've seen. So, because this season, Charles has been impeccable. He's been phenomenal. But drivers make mistakes, everyone does it. And it was a boo-boo for Charles, but he managed to recover a few positions, get back to P6 and still score points, still put points on the board. So that's important, obviously, for him. So he scored 7 points in the sprint. He scored 8 points today. So, could have been a P3, should have been a P3. At least he didn't bottle it from the lead. I mean, that would have been an even bigger L. Because obviously there's 10 points between finishing first and third. So there you go. Just dropped my phone. And then Carlos. Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, again, I've said it before, like, he's had bad luck, but also he's culpability in that as well. Like, he cocked up in Australia in the race, pushing too hard, trying to recover. He cocked up in qualifying, which put him on the back foot, made his way through. And then in the race, he got unlucky, you know? He got unlucky, and it was just unfortunate that Ricciardo just about clipped him. It was a really good recovery drive from him in the sprint and puts him in the gravel. And yeah, he was obviously gutted afterwards, especially when it's not really your fault. That makes it even more painful. 2 DNFs in 4 races for Carlos, sorry. And yeah, still not the start to the season he wanted. He needed a good race because he needs to keep up that momentum. And look, Ferrari know what he's capable of. They understand that, you know, he's had his fair share of bad luck, which you could argue the bad luck has then pushed him, at least in Australia, the issues that he had were what provoked him to be more desperate in his chasing of the of good positions. But yeah, it's not been the start for Carlos, but I do think that, you know, let's not overreact here. He's still very close to Charles. He's still top tier. It's just not been a great start to the season. But there you go. Oh, right. Okay, I think we're done, everyone. It's been an hour 20. I haven't even looked at my fantasy league because I forgot about it this weekend. But all I know is I've got Ocon in it, which isn't great. I've got Albon, which is okay. I mean, better than Latifi. So I don't know if I get points. I've got Leclerc and Verstappen, I think. And then I can't remember my other driver. I'm not sure. And then I've got Ferrari as team, so that's not good either. So I don't really care. I'm not going to look at fantasy, and I haven't produced a graphic for it. Right, so thank you all for coming. I appreciate you all taking the time. I'm going to now spend... I'll spend until we get to an hour 30 just looking at the chat and answering questions. Pablo says, Gasly 100% isn't getting that Red Bull seat. Do you think he'll sign for Toro Rosso again, as in AlphaTauri? I mean, he's got... his contract ends the end of next season. So he's got all of this year and technically all of next year at AlphaTauri. He will definitely not be at that team after then. That's 100%. It depends on when an opportunity... If an opportunity comes up for a seat in a top team next year, so say, for example, if Vettel retired or if Hamilton retired or whatever, then... Or if Daniel retired, I don't know, then I think Gasly could end up in a different team next season and they'd just buy him out of his contract. But because contracts, yeah, you can have a contract, but our Sergio Perez, like, you can still get bought out of it. So there you go. Is Minton going to replace Latifi at Williams? No, I wouldn't put him through that. He's far too tired. What else? What? Yeah, the Rosberg on the comms, if you're watching Sky Sports F1, I thought it was a bit like, because I think Nico Rosberg's great, but I think he needs to be there in person. If he's just sat there like with a microphone on, I don't think that works. Like that, the dynamic of that didn't really work. But I love Nico Rosberg as a pundit. I want him doing, if Brundle's not doing the grid walk, I want Rosberg doing the grid walk for sure. He'd be great at that. Which seat will Oscar Piastri be in 23 if he gets a seat? It just depends on what becomes available. Again, there's a lot of talk around Vettel's future. There's obviously always going to be talk about Lewis's future. Not that I think Piastri would go to Mercedes, but I think, yeah, he needs to have a seat next year. And I think, like, again, yes, in the same way that, you know, you've got a contract, you know, if Alpine can't offer him an opportunity and another team comes in and be like, Oscar, will buy you out of your contract, you're not Alpine anymore, you're with us, then I don't see why that couldn't happen. Ted said rumours in the paddock about Piastri to Williams. Well, of course, there's going to be rumours around Latifi's future because he's not delivering. So, I mean, that'd be amazing for Williams. I think a driver, if Williams could fully sign Piastri, not, you know, they have to give him back to Alpine. Like, no, we're going to throw our driver academy money at you and give you an opportunity and to help grow this team with Alex Albon, who's clearly doing a very good job, that could be incredible for Williams. This is what I mean. Alpine have got, because Alonso is driving, and I've said it, I think Alonso's had a stronger start to the season than Ocon. Not by much, but I think he has, especially last weekend. The setup was just spot on. But Alpine, it's difficult because Alpine have got to think for the future, surely. And Fernando's only going to be in the sport for another 2 seasons maximum. And, they've got to think ahead. And even if Alonso's driving at a better level, Ocon's only 25. Piastri's 21, 22, whatever he is. Like, the potential of losing Piastri is huge with Alpine. So they've got some really difficult decisions to make. Why wasn't Brundle there? He's not there every race. I think he misses races over the course of the year. So I don't know. I'm not sure why. How old is Minton? He's 3.5. His birthday's 5th of October. So it's about 3.5 now. Have Red Bull fixed their car? I mean, it didn't break this today, so there you go. That's good. I think no. Piastri's not going to replace Mick Schumacher. No, that's not going to happen. Don't Williams want Logan though? Well, yeah, I think obviously Williams signed Logan Sargent, who's now in F2. I think he crashed from like P2 today. I didn't watch the F2 to be honest. I've been a busy boy today. But yeah, obviously signing Logan, because I think Logan's fantastic. He's my favourite F2 driver. I really want him to do well. Because in F3, him and Piastri went right to the end. And I think Logan's definitely got the potential. Obviously having an American driver in F1 as well, that would be huge. I think Logan's good, but I think Piastri's a known entity. You know what I mean? A known entity. But yeah, we'll see. Right. Alonso still returning at 80, slapping up rookies. If anyone could do it, it's him. Right, okay. I'm going to wrap it there. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, everyone, for watching live. Ward, Joseph, Redback, Hannah, Simon, Pablo, Raul, Redback, Philly, Larts, Ward, Marius. I said Ward twice. Big up Ward. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for listening, live or after the fact, wherever you are in the world. I appreciate it. Like, do that now, quick. Nothing's going to happen. I'm just saying. Subscribe. Make sure you subscribed. Do all that stuff. Do all that channel stuff that helps me out. I'd appreciate it. And I will see you. New video should be out on Wednesday. I'm aiming for Wednesday. Where we'll be talking all about the story from karts to now of Verstappen versus Leclerc. It's been fun to research that one. I had a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, cheers everyone for coming. Thank you all. I will see you when I see you. Stay healthy. Drink water. Be hydrated. Be good. Be happy. And have a good day.